filmsimplified.com.
Yeah, this is much better. Now take a look at the original colors of the image. So I'll select these two nodes, disable them. Notice the original colors, they're definitely correct. However, these colors look way more artistic. Hi, I'm Alex Jordan from Learn Color Grading and filmsimplified.com. And over the past year, I received, at least 10 messages, like through emails or comments, saying that I use the word however extensively. However, I'm going to continue using it. Let's start. So today we're going to be taking a look at a color grading method that is guaranteed to give you beautiful colors with great color contrast and with no regard to color accuracy at all. Let's start. Let's take a look at this image. You'll notice that the colors of the objects in the image do not go well together. Usually when you're working on a larger project, you have some sort of set designer working with you and with the director where you're basically doing color grading before you even film. So you're selecting, or the person is selecting all the colors of the different objects that will appear in the scene, and they're making sure that all the colors go well together of the different objects, and they also make sure that there's great color contrast. And this is a luxury that you unfortunately don't have on every project. So if we take a look at this image again, you'll notice that the blue here, so the blue of this book, doesn't really go with anything in the scene. The color of the table is really off. It doesn't complement anything in the scene. The red seems out of place, and the color of the books really collides with the color of the table. Now, of course, you can spend time selecting each one of these objects separately, working on its color, but again, this is a luxury that, again, you don't have on every project. Sometimes you just need to produce beautiful colors with guaranteed color contrast really fast with the least amount of effort. So let's take a look at this technique.
Speaking of Resolve, if you're a beginner and you're interested in learning how to use Resolve, you'll love our free crash course that will teach you the basics of every tab in Resolve. Simply go to filmsimplified.com and sign up for free.
So I'll start by going to Scopes and opening the Vector Scope. Then I'm going to open the Color Warper by clicking here, and this is the Color Warper. In a previous video, I explained the Color Warper and how it works, so this is not going to be about the Color Warper. We're simply going to be using the Color Warper now. So how does this technique work? First, we need to keep only two colors in the image. And we need to make sure that these two colors have great color contrast. So we will basically be removing all the other colors in the image other than these two colors. And so that would be step one. Then there's step two. However, what do I mean by the word color contrast? Color contrast simply is a term that means many things, but in its simplest form, the simplest form of color contrast is that when two colors are on opposite sides of the color wheel. So for example, this is the center of the color wheel here, or of course this is a color wheel, this is a color wheel, and this is a color wheel, so they're basically the same. So this is the center of the color wheel, and here notice that we have red on this side and cyan on this side. And if you draw a straight line from red to cyan, it will go through the center of the color wheel. So these two colors, red and cyan, are basically on opposite sides of the color wheel. That simply means that they have great color contrast. So any two colors on opposite sides of the color wheel have great color contrast, or the most basic form of color contrast at least. So if you look at the color warper here, you'll notice that red and cyan on opposite side, as we discussed earlier. So we're going to be removing the rest of the colors. So I'm going to start by removing magenta, simply by dragging the magenta line here and dragging it all the way to join it with red. And I'm going to do the same for yellow, so dragging yellow towards red. And then I'll do the same for blue and green, but towards cyan this time. So I'll drag blue towards cyan and green towards cyan. Now, take a look at the Vector Scope and notice how now all the colors are basically on this one line. Actually, the line seems to be a bit tilted, so I'll select all these points and move them to the right a bit, and great. Notice that now here we have colors along this line. So now we have great color contrast. However, notice the colors of the image. They just don't look good at all. There are multiple reasons for that. First, the colors are very saturated because we joined the saturation from all the different colors into one color. So the first thing we need to do is to reduce saturation. However, we're going to stop working on the same node now. We need to separate our adjustments into different nodes because this will make at least our undo history easier. So what we're going to be doing now is to simply add a new node and take it from there. So I'll go to color, nodes, add a serial node, and here we have a new node. And now in the new node, I'm simply going to reduce saturation. Then you'll notice that the skin tones definitely don't look correct now because we joined everything into this weird red color, which is definitely doesn't fall on the skin tone line. So if you look at the vector scope, this is the skin tone line. If you don't see it, you simply click on these controllers here, and to the bottom there is this controller that says show skin tone indicator. Make sure it's clicked and you'll have this skin tone indicator. So in order to control the hue now, I'm simply going to go to the hue controller, and notice that when I control the hue controller, I am moving the colors around. I'm switching the selected colors. However, because we selected two colors earlier, notice that we always have great color contrast because the colors move on opposite sides from each other. So I'm going to move reds towards the skin tone line. Notice this here, how the reds are very close to the skin tone line. So let's move it to this part, and much better. Now, and I'll just reduce saturation a bit more. And now let's take a look at the image before and after. So I'll select these two nodes where I just made all the changes and disable them and take a look at the original colors. They're correct, but they're not beautiful. And the new colors are much better. They go together in a much better way. Notice that the colors table is much closer to the color of this book now. Notice that the red from this book is very close to the red from this book. And the blue doesn't collide with anything in the image because it's exactly on the opposite side of the color wheel from this particular shade of red. So again, let's take a look at the original image. Notice that the color of this book doesn't go with this red, and that the table is a different shade of yellow from this book, and just things don't go together well. And after adding the changes, this looks much better. This might work great if you're filming some sort of a music video or some artistic work. However, notice that we threw color accuracy the window basically, so there is no color accuracy anymore. This might prove to be a problem in two cases. Case one, if you have a client and they are you're filming something for a particular brand, and the brand have colors that are very specific to this brand. So you need to, like, there are some products with particular colors or some logos or something. So in that case, this won't work, of course, because there is no color accuracy anymore. So that's not recommended unless you're filming something artistic, which most of us, I'm sure, do. The second thing, what we're going to be taking a look at, what if there is green? Because the human eye is very sensitive to green because, you know, it's green. You cannot change the color of green. Let's take a look at this image. Let's say that we want to apply that technique to this image. However, there's a lot of green in this image. In this case, of course, our technique won't work. Let's try. I'm going to add a new node. So there's a new node here, and I'm going to gather the colors. So from this side, I'm just going to do it really fast. And from this side, I'm going to add a new node. So we have a new node here. Maybe reduce saturation and change the hue to whatever we like. And great. This is an interesting image, but the green looks really, really, really bad. So what can we do here? Well, in that case, you need to gather the colors into into a line, basically, so the same technique, but while preserving the color green. In order to do that, I'm going to simply drag magenta next to red, so we have this line from this side, and I'm going to drag blue towards cyan. Great. So we eliminated all the colors from this side. However, notice that we did not touch yellow and green. So we're going to control yellow and green separately. Notice that when I control this yellow controller, I'm changing the color of the plants here, and the same for green. However, that's great. However, when you add a new node now and change the hue and of the image in the new node, you're still going to change the color of green. How do you solve that? Well, the color warper have its own built-in hue controller that allows us to control the hue of only the points we select. So what we'll do now is that we'll select this point, so representing red and magenta, and I'll hit Command on my computer and select this point, so controlling red and cyan. And notice that here in the color warper, when we select these points, we can control their hue using this hue controller here. So if I control it, notice that I'm changing the colors only of this line while preserving the color of green. And this will allow you also to control the saturation and even the luminance of the colors on these points without changing the color of green, which will allow us to, get the exact shade of green we want by selecting these points. So these points here control the green parts, and these points control the rest of the image, allowing us to control the image in a more precise way. So you can simply think of this technique as throwing away the colors you don't like in an image or you don't want in an image and only keeping colors on the exact opposite sides of the color wheel, so you'll always have great colors with great color contrast. Now try this on when next time you film something artistic, and you'll find that the image looks way better and the colors go well together without you needing to do anything. Because unfortunately, a lot of the time you film in the street, for example, and you can't control even the colors of the lights in the background. So let's take a look at this image. I'll add contrast really fast, pivot, maybe I'll just go to log and just bring it down a bit. Okay, so we just corrected the image like as much as we can really fast. And let's just increase saturation, and you'll notice that this color in the back, so this green, looks really weird in the image. Many of the colors in the image, they just don't go well together, and this will not be easy to deal with. Of course, you can always fix things by going in manually and selecting objects and fixing things, but in many cases, you just need to finish your work as fast as you can. So I'll add a new node, and in the new node, I'm going again to get magenta next to red, yellow next to red, and I'll do the same. So blue cyan and green towards cyan. And I'm going to add a new node, reduce saturation, and change the hue controller. And let's do it this way, and maybe reduce saturation even further, and much better. Let's change the hue a bit. Yeah, this is much better. Now take a look at the original colors of the image. So I'll select these two nodes, disable them. Notice the original colors, they're definitely correct. However, these colors look way more artistic. So before and after, notice the green here in the background. Notice that actually the green and all the colors here in the background basically assimilated into this single red color. So before we had this yellow, this, I'm not sure what this is, and this green color here, and a lot of colors in the image. Look at this yellow here and whatever she's holding. However, once I activate these nodes, okay, things are looking good. So I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, please visit us at filmsimplified.com, where you can join our free DaVinci Resolve crash course that is designed for the absolute beginner and will take you through every tab in Resolve. Thank you.
filmsimplified.com.